Hi, I'm Heather from here booktubes, and I am well known for DNFing books. I am, for the first time ever, going to do a DNF wrap up, and I would like for you to give me feedback on this. So if this video kind of shows you the thinking behind my DNFs and that's all you need, you can say, hey, I think this video is good. If you really want me to include my DNFs in chronological order in my monthly wrap-ups, let me know that. If you want quarterly DNF wrap-ups, let me know that. This is a video I really never thought I'd make, and I have consistently gotten requests for it, so this is for you. People that particularly come to mind are Ray, Tracy, and Vina have all encouraged me to talk about my DNFs. So I hope that this encourages you to DNF more. I DNF all the time for any reason that I want. So in the first quarter of the year, I read 44 books and I DNF'd. I DNF'd 35 books, but we're going to talk about 39 books. So there you go. Now this was a high DNF rate for me, but we're just going to talk about it kind of in the order that's on my Goodreads. So here we go. First one is Asking for It by Lila Pace. This is a traditionally published romance. It has consensual non-consent in it and is probably the best well-known book for that trope. I DNF'd pretty early on. The writing wasn't working great for me. It was okay. So she has these fantasies about being forced, right? And she's in therapy and she's talking about how, and her therapist is like pushing back against this idea, but she's talking about how disgusting she is and like how dare she have these fantasies, and you know, she's a terrible person, there's something wrong with her and all of that. And I have such a huge pet peeve with that. I know that authors often do it to teach the reader and or to encourage the reader that it's okay to be into this kink. But for me, if I am picking up a book for a specific kink, I don't then want that kink to be shamed in the book by the main character who's supposed to be enjoying it. I picked up your book for this, and now we have to do this whole rigmarole of people who don't know what it is and don't understand it and look down on it. I don't like that. So if you've read this book, she meets this guy alongside the road. Turns out he's somebody's professor. She meets him again at the party, and the party's where I DNF'd. So we're talking maybe like 10-15%, and I figured that kink stuff would probably, like the pushback against it would probably go away, but honestly I didn't care enough to continue. Then I have The Deep by River Solomon. I read one chapter of this. It was not really dragging me in. I was having a difficult time focusing on it. I was in a little bit of a reading slump. I was also trying to read multiple books that were not romance, and this is just the one that didn't make the cut. And the thing is, a book can be important, powerful, moving, beautifully written. It can be, you know, a ton of people's favorites. It can be life-changing for some people. It can be well done. And you don't have to be the one that reads it. We can't read all of the books that fit into that category. Even if you yourself would really enjoy a book, you don't have to pick it up just because the chances of you enjoying it are high. If you're not feeling it, that's no big deal. It has nothing to do with the quality of the book, the author, the overall enjoyment of most readers with the book. Just you weren't really feeling like reading it, so that's it. Then I have Soul and Darkness by Wendy Higgins. This is a Psyche and Cupid, I believe, retelling that has been on my radar for years. I finally picked it up for a tri-chapter challenge, and I haven't marked as a DNF specifically because the entire point of that video was that I would DNF books. I did make it a tri-chapter challenge, but really it was, you know, decide, am I reading these books? And again, the writing on this just didn't really do anything for me. And it was easy to just say, I'm moving on with my life. That's not happening. Next I have Declutter Like a Mother, a guilt-free, no-stress way to transform your home and your life by Ali Kazaza. This is kind of a beginner minimalism book, and honestly didn't have anything in the first 30% or so that was helpful to me. I wasn't even looking to really learn anything. I was just kind of looking for motivation for spring cleaning and decluttering, and it didn't give me that, so another book off the TBR. Then I have Bow Before the Elf Queen, which is J.M. Curl. This is a fantasy romance with no steam. Tried this for the fantasy romance challenge. I made about 30-40% into it, so I did read past the chapter. And her fated mate is the king of the elves, and she's been raised to kill him, and his father killed her parents when they like forced the mating bond as children, yada yada yada. So we hear him talking to someone, and he's all like, no, I'm not gonna tell her. And I was just like, I don't need this in my life. I don't care about your stupid little secrets that you should have told the love of your life. I don't care. More power to you and your relationship struggles, but I will not be a spectator. Next, I have A Passionate Love by Delaney Diamond. This is a Black love romance. She is an heiress to like $1 billion company or some ridiculousness, and he's a nightclub owner. So even though he's pretty well-to-do, she's significantly higher class than he is, right? Her hang-ups were boring to me. It was like, ma'am, like we don't need to struggle this much with this. This is weird. And they meet and she throws up all over him, and I was just kind of like, you know, I'm good. I don't care. I was like 30% in. The writing wasn't really doing it for me. The characters weren't really doing it for me. They were having banter, and I was like, this is the best you've got. So that was that. Then I have The Devil and the Heiress by Harper St. George. I made it a good chunk into this. I can't remember if that was like 40% or 60%. I think it was 60 or 70%. I think it was pretty far into it. I don't really remember why I DNF'd, but I do remember being a little bit bored, and I think something kind of annoying happened, and I was like, I don't care about this plot. I don't care what you're doing with this storyline. This is not something that I need to finish, so we're done here. Then I have Skeletons of Society by Marie Meravilla. This is a dark mafia book by a Latinx author, and it's been on my radar for several months. It's a book talk favorite. She meets him. She's pretty high up in the cartel. She meets him, and he is just a misogynistic a-hole for like no reason. For no reason. He's like jealous of someone sleeping with her, even though no one's sleeping with her. It was weird to me, just simply because the way he acted wasn't just like, it was just misogynistic. That's all it was. I was like, am I supposed to be rooting for you? Because I'm not. I don't, like, you're the good guy in this story, because how incredibly immature and disgusting. Now, I will say the second book of this is a Why Choose that Izzy really loved, and I do still have it on my TBR. So we'll see. We often do disagree on our dark books, so we'll see. Then I have Origins, which is Charlie Nottingham. This is a fantasy romance. This again was a try chapter challenge, and I just didn't care to continue necessarily. The part that I read is her as a child, and then the next chapter I think is him as a child, and I was like, I don't care about you as children. I'm not really good with stuff like that. I don't like dual timelines. I don't like flashbacks. I don't really like, I don't know. I don't care about your past. Just give it to me in the same way that you would give me that story if you were meeting me. I don't need to actually, know you as a child. Then I have Blind Date with a Book Boyfriend by Lucy Eden. I think this was 30 or 40% in. It was cute. They meet in a bookstore, but It was, how do I say this? It was fine. It was fine. I probably would have been a 3 or a 4 star if I continued. I could have finished it. I didn't feel like finishing it, so I just stopped. Then I have Gotta Pain, which is by Rena Kent. This is a new adult dark romance, and I skimmed like a tiny bit of this. I kind of wanted to see if I was still interested in Rena Kent's writing. I actually DNF'd 3 new adult dark romances with primal and non-consensual non-consent kink in the same night. That happens a lot. I'm trying to find something for a specific mood, so I go through quite a few of the things on my TBR that is for that mood and discover that I'm not really into these particular renditions of it. I couldn't even tell you which one this was, but I just basically decided, no, I'm not interested in this, so I won't be trying Rena Kent again, to be honest. The books that I already read and loved from her are what I read and loved 3 or 4 years ago. Next I have Ensnared by the Werewolf by Lillian Lark. I read this for a try a chapter challenge for second chance authors. I did make it about 30 or 40% into this. It probably would have been a 4 star if I continued. I just didn't feel like continuing. Honestly, the only reason why I got that far is because every time I opened my Kindle, it was still open to this book, so I would just read some. It was sweet. There was nothing wrong with it. It was perfectly fine. I just didn't care to read it. Then I have King of Wrath by Anna Wong. This was also from that same try a chapter challenge. I made it 60 or 70% into this book. It's very long, and it was a little bit boring. It's highly predictable billionaire romance. He's being blackmailed into marrying her and also falling in love with her, and she doesn't know that he's being blackmailed by her father. And honestly, we were heading towards the 3rd act conflict, breakup, his secrets coming out, the fact that he never told her that he was being blackmailed, the fact that he, was hidden all this, blah, 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 blah. And some of it is that she would change everything about herself to satisfy her family, and she just refused to not do exactly what they wanted to make them happy, and that had caused problems for her before with her relationship when her family didn't approve of him, and simply because he wasn't rich enough. That always frustrates me. That's just not what I like to read, because I don't know, I don't like it. Maybe it's my own baggage. I don't like it. So he wasn't telling her the secret because he felt that she would pick her family over him, and he loved her. But I was just like, I don't really care about y'all's 3rd act breakup. I don't really care about the secret coming out. I can kind of pretty much figure out what's gonna happen here. Anna Wong likes groveling with her heroes quite a bit more than I do. I'm not really into groveling, I won't lie. I either forgive you or I don't want to hear it. And honestly, I'm pretty easy to forgive. If you take the time to apologize to me, that's usually like all I need, honestly. I guess I hold a grudge if you can't be bothered to make amends, but if you try and make amends, I'm pretty quick to accept those amends, and I just don't like characters who aren't. And I also am just always like, you shouldn't have done that in the first place. I'd much rather read a hero who didn't do the thing in the first place and doesn't have to grovel than a hero who now needs to grovel for his relationship. I'm not into that. And I have Red Thorns by Rena Kent. This is the same night as the other one. Same thing. Started at the very beginning, started skimming, was like, okay, maybe I could get past the setup, which is something I do sometimes. I do try and get past the setup of some books, but didn't make it. Next, same night, The Ritual by Chantal Tessier. He like starts murdering someone for a secret society in the very beginning, and I was just like, okay, Okay, you little college students, this is whatever. You feel like a caricature of someone with real power. And then back in January, for those of you who are like, do you ever pick a book back up? Rarely. So in January, I DNF'd Nettle and Bone by T. Kingfisher at the 40% mark. She just met the love interest. I was in a reading slump. I was bored. I ended up picking the book back up in February. I gave it 4 stars. T. Kingfisher, I really love their fantasy romance, and I like their other books, but I love their fantasy romance, and this wasn't enough romance, and it also wasn't the typical type of character I like. I did really enjoy it. I would have been okay not picking it up. The thing about me and DNFs is it can be a 5-star book. It can be a 4-star book. It can be definitely be a 3-star book. Anything lower than that, I'm like, I definitely should have DNF'd you. I can know that if I continued that book, I would give it 5 stars. And it simply does not matter to me. It is impossible for me to read all of the books that would be 5 stars for me. So if I am not feeling like reading that book, I simply stop. And it doesn't matter if it would have gotten better later on. It doesn't matter if everyone's reading it. It doesn't matter if it's really good representation. If I don't feel like reading it, I just stop. And I just don't feel any FOMO. I don't feel any guilt. I don't feel any like I'm missing anything. I really don't. Then I have Kaya by Leela Rose. This is a motorcycle club romance. I made it about 60% into this. There was this girl, like a club girl. If you've read motorcycle club books, then you're familiar. She was just like going after the hero in such a weird way. Like she was naked in his bed and stuff. And he was like, you know, mad at her, obviously, but he's also calling her a slut and everything. And I was just like, I don't care about this. This is ridiculous. This is such made up other women drama. I don't like the way you're handling it. I don't like the way you're handling it. I think this entire situation is dumb. We're done here. And so I quit. Then I have These Hollow Vows by Lexi Ryan. This is a young adult fantasy. She owes a life debt, blah, blah, blah. Like, they're never going to get out of debt. Everything, the whole system's against them. She's going to end up with Faye, I think. But the beginning stressed me out, and I don't need stress in my life. So try a chapter challenge, and a chapter was all it was. I don't even think I finished the chapter, maybe. So that was an early DNF. Stolen Midsummer Bride by Tara Grace, a fantasy romance. This was boring. I didn't care about these characters. I didn't care about their problems, their plot. It was only like 120 pages or so. I think I made it about 30% in, but ultimately, writing and characters didn't really matter to me. Next, I have A Second Serving by Nikki Black. This is a thriller where you have a married couple and he gets a third for a threesome to try and reinvigorate their marriage, I think. And turns out the guy that he gets has actually been stalking his wife and planning how to kill him to get him out of the picture. And it sounded pretty interesting. I think it was a Weekend Reader maybe read this and kind of liked it, but the writing didn't work for me. I was bored very, very quickly. The characters felt two-dimensional, and so I quit, again, about 20 or 30% in. Next, I have Fake It Till You Bake It by Jamie Wesley. I only picked this up for Blackathon because it was the group book. I did not think I would like it. It did not impress me enough to change my mind. I don't like baking. This is not the type of thing that I reach for. I don't know what it is. I literally could not care less about baking plots. Like, no thank you. I will avoid them every single time. And also, the large majority of my DNFs are new to me authors. I pick up your book, I try it, it's not really for me, I put it down. So very few are repeat authors. One that is Love at First Spite by Alexandra Warren. I love Alexandra Warren's writing. This is the only book I picked up by her that I did not. The banter and stuff was not doing it for me. I know how much I typically like her books, so the fact that I really was not enjoying this one at all just meant it wasn't the one for me. I knew not to try and push through. Mina, who I often overlap my taste with, she did not particularly enjoy it, and the part she did enjoy was the part I was already not enjoying, so I just let that one go. I'll read other Alexandra Warren books. I don't need to read this one. Just because it's an author that you like doesn't mean you have to read and like either or all of their books. Next I have Sweet Vengeance by Viano Animo. This I made it 70% through. This is not a particularly long book. It's under 200 pages. It has really good representation. You have a queer Black woman in Nigeria, and she makes a deal with a demon because she was raped and she wants to murder her rapist and get away with it. That content is pretty heavy on page. She has a lot of flashbacks. There's a lot of things like that. Also, there's victim blaming. Also, there's other survivors. There's a lot. It was pretty heavy, honestly, with the sexual assault content. And then you have a virgin, sweet cinnamon roll demon who worships the ground she walks on and who has been abused himself and doesn't know how to, he's worried about staying on Earth and stuff like that. So I liked parts of it. The sexual assault stuff was honestly pretty heavy for me. I was kind of struggling to enjoy it because of that. But then also, I was 70% through. We were done with the plot. I tried. I tried to finish this book because I debated DNFing it several times before I actually did. It just was really dragging for me. And I don't know why, but I just did not want to read 30 more percent. I didn't. Yeah. I don't know. I think most people who have picked this up have really, really enjoyed it. And it would have been like a 4-star for me, probably. Maybe a 3-star if the last 30% was pretty boring. There were things I really liked about it, but I tried to finish it and I just didn't want to. I did not want to. I felt like I was dragging through molasses. And I don't really think that's the fault of the book, necessarily. I do know Sharonda said that she felt that it dragged a little bit. She did finish it. And like I said, it's not particularly long, so it's kind of weird that's an issue. Then I have A Monster's Treasure by Linnea Lee. This one is, you know, typical tyrannical government in space lying to their people, abusing their people, yada yada. And then you have these aliens who want mates and treat them like gold. The only way that they get them basically is if prisoners choose them over this other science experiment, and a lot of propaganda in the government about how terrible they are, and obviously they're scary looking and all the things. Again, I think I made it 60 or 70% into this book. I was just like, I don't care about this relationship. I don't care about these characters. I don't care that you want to go back to your brother for no reason. There's literally nothing for you left in their society. But you're like, no, I can't stay with this amazing alien who treats me so well because my brother, your brother has a partner. Your brother has a job. Your brother is doing fine. You were not doing fine. You were just a dead weight. You don't need to go back to a society where you literally will not be able to dig yourself out of the hole that they have forced you into because of your brother who doesn't need you in the first place. He's an adult. He's fine. Okay, so now you know that. Daughter of No Worlds by Krista Broadbent. This is a fantasy romance. I tried a chapter. A lot of people either love it or hate it. I thought it was super boring. So take that with a grain of salt. That chapter 1 did nothing for me. And I have When Woman Ruled the World, 6 Queens of Egypt by Kara Cooney. I was an Egypt kid. I love especially reading about powerful female rulers in history and kind of how they were slandered by their political opponents, and how a lot of times what we remember them for is not who and what they were. This is a nonfiction, and the writing just wasn't what I wanted, so I tried it and quickly decided, no, this is not what I want to read. Then for the Fantasy Romance Challenge, I read Velvet by Lizette Marshall, which is The Princess and the Spy #1. I gave that 3 stars. I then picked up the second book, Leather, read the first 20% and the final chapter, knew every single thing that happened in that book, and DNF'd. Then I picked up the third one, Silk. I read 9% of this book and could tell you every single thing that happened in it. I guarantee you, I know all the things. I was just like, I'm good. I'm good here. Also, for the Tri-Chapter Fantasy Challenge, I read 1 chapter of Ruin and Roses, which is Cursed Kingdoms #1 by Deanna Ortega. This is not technically a DNF. I do still have it on my TBR. So that just lets you know that, you know, not all of these books are DNFs. That one I do still plan on reading. That doesn't mean that I won't DNF it later on because I am nothing if not a quitter. But it's currently not a DNF. It is on my TBR, just to let you know kind of how that works. Another book that is not a DNF and is on my TBR is Little Thieves by Margaret Owen. I read 2 chapters of this and then I ended up reading Mask of Mirrors instead. So I do still have this on my TBR. The beginning did stress me out like a tiny little bit, so I'm like not super sure. I've heard such amazing things about this book that I really do want to give it more of a try. But I was a little stressed and I was like, maybe this isn't for me, because there's like definitely not going to be the most stressful part of the book. There's no way. But that's where I'm at with that. It's not technically a DNF, even though I read 2 chapters and DNF'd it. It's on my TBR. The last book that I'm still actively planning on reading is Always Only You, which is Bergman Brothers #2 by Chloe Leese. This was Tri-Chapter Challenge. I did enjoy that chapter. I do still have it on my TBR. I knew not to try and crowd all those books together, so I'll probably read it in May or June, somewhere around there, or at least pick it up. Next I have Sweet Fang by Nicole Whitfield. This is a Black vampire book, and honestly the writing was not really working for me, so I quit about 10 or 20% in. It's a short, under 200 page novella. Yeah, the writing just wasn't for me, and that's honestly, again, how I pick up most books. I actively pick up books planning on DNFing them. They often, especially new to me authors, they have to justify me continuing to read them. The plan is basically to DNF. Next I have The Fae Princes by Nikki St. Croix. I read the prologue and that was it. I honestly only picked it up because I was supposed to do a live show with my friends about it, and I messaged them and was like, hey, I don't want to read this book. I don't want to read it. I don't have much interest anymore. I'm sure it would be fine. I highly doubt I would hate the book. It would probably be a 3-star based on some other reviews that I've seen. It would probably be a 3-star. And that would be okay. And if they needed me to for the live show, I would. But the fact is I don't want to. I don't have to. And I'm not gonna. Next I have Stolen by the Art Commander by K.L. Wyatt. I read 70% of this, maybe even 80% of this. Here's the thing. Yeah. Here's the thing. This author should have just skipped the plot because they're not good at it. The plot was the most boring part of this book by a mile. They should have just done steamy relationship and that was it. I wanted hot orc sex. That's what I was here in this book for. I do not freaking care about the king, about overthrowing him, about putting the true bloodline on the throne, and then they go back to Orc Mountain. I do not care. So we were about to have like a big battle for that. And I was like, I don't care about this kingdom. I don't care. You know, I'm sure you, the rightful heir, are lovely. I'm sure you're lovely. But I assume you're going to get the throne back, and I don't need to watch you do it, truthfully. So that was that. Then The Mistwalker by Regina Abel. This was tri-chapter. The writing did not work for me. Forged in Fire by Juliet Cross, tri-chapter. Both of these were second chance authors. The writing did not do it for me. In fact, I actively rolled my eyes like 3 times in the first chapter of this. Love Burns Bright, which is Fatal Fidelity number 3 by Rhian Gray. So I read the first 2 books in this trilogy back to back and then picked this one up. I gave the first 2 4 stars. It's pretty rare for me to pick up books like that back to back, so that was, you know, a recommendation for it in its own right. It's a non-binary assassin, gets hired by this woman to kill her husband, and then they fall in love. So in the first 2 books, I'd already taken issue with the fact that our assassin often discounted the rules that they lived by, the rules that kept them safe, kept them from getting caught, all of that, because they were in love. And that just annoys me. If you're going to be good at being a killer, be a good killer. This one, we're going back to meet her family, and she was in an abusive relationship. That's part of why she hired the assassin in the first place, and she really hasn't seen her family in years. So we go back to her family and multiple times in like the first 10 or 20% of this book, she's just like, oh, I feel so bad that I have to tell them that they are a security consultant when really they're an assassin. They're a killer. I feel so bad about lying to my family and friends about them killing people. And I was just like, I cannot stand you right now. This is, of all of my pet peeves, I hate it so much. You hired them to murder your husband. You have actively helped them get away with other murders at this point. Even if you didn't, you can't just go around telling people that you kill people because you care about them and you feel bad lying that they're a security consultant. They are a security consultant. It just involves a little bit of murder. The stupidity. You don't deserve to get away with your crimes if you then feel bad about not confessing them to everybody that you know. You idiot. So I feel pretty passionately about that. If you're gonna kill people, be good at it. And by being good at it, I mean take the secret with you to your grave. You cannot go around telling people who don't also kill people. Ugh. Just the annoying inner monologue of I feel so guilty about not telling them that they kill people for a living. Kill me. Kill me now, because I do not want to be in this story. We're almost done here. Meant to Be The Townsends of Williamsport number 2 by Tiffany Patterson. I was talking about the first book and was like, oh, I really loved this so much. Let me try the second one. And was basically in the prologue. I was like, I don't care about you torturing this man. I don't care about your little criminal organization. I don't care about you. I'm so sorry, but actually no. So I bailed on that really quickly. And then lastly, I have A Lady for a Duke by Alexis Hall. I made it 60% into this book. I really thought about DNFing at 30%, but I talked to Steph, and this is a historical romance with a transgender woman, and she has a romance with her childhood, lifelong, I guess, best friend. And her best friend is a duke and thought that she died in battle in the war and has basically stopped living since that happened. Also lost a lot of the use of their leg, and so has been struggling. She has been unaware of this. Of course, she has broken ties with her life before. So I was like, how long is this gonna go on where she really wants to tell him, but she doesn't? And turns out it goes on for like 1% more. So it was around the 30% mark that the Duke finds out that this is his best friend and what's going on with that, and has a little bit of a mixed reaction. Understandably, he thought they were dead, right? And then we have 30% more of them wanting to be together, and she's just like, no, we can't. The life that I've set up for myself, society, which, accurate, but we were 60% into this book, and just not a lot was happening in any direction, which I am okay with that. I'm really, honestly, very okay with slice of life type romances, but I have to feel like the romance, I guess, is giving me what I want, and this didn't entirely do that. So while I do know that this is a lot of people's favorites, I was enjoying it perfectly fine. Again, there's going to be a 4-star probably, depending on the final 40% of the book. It could go up or down from there or remain the same. But again, just because a book is good and important and well done and beautiful and all of the things doesn't mean you have to be the one that reads it. It just doesn't. You can quit and it doesn't really have anything to do with the book. And I just truthfully didn't want to read more. I wanted to be done. And so I was done, and I picked up a different book and had a much better experience because that's what I wanted to read. And sometimes that's how deep it is. Do I feel like reading you today? No, I don't. Okay. The TBR is never ending. I have never run out of books to read. There are always books on my downloaded from Kindle Unlimited, the library, and on my Kindle that I have yet to read. There are always books listed on my TBR on Goodreads. Regardless of how many books I DNF, I never run out of TBR space. So for me, it's just truly a really helpful tool to read more of the books that are going to work well for me and be my favorites. So I hope that was helpful. I hope you DNF books. I hope you give yourself permission. I see a lot of people, saying, I make myself read that first 100 pages. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. If you feel like quitting at literally any point, do it. You don't get a gold star. You don't get a medallion, a participation trophy. Maybe you want to finish a book for your reading goal, but for me at least, who cares? Who cares? You don't get anything for finishing a book that you didn't really feel like finishing. Maybe you will end up really liking that book, but you're never going to read all the books that you would really like, so what do I care if I quit on it? I don't. So, I don't know. I read what I want to read, and if I feel like quitting, I do. Because, say it with me, we are quitters. Alright, so that's it. Please let me know if you want any future DNF content from me, and or if any of this surprised you. I feel like I've been pretty open about how and why and when and where I DNF books, but if something surprised you, do let me know. If you don't have anything to say, leave me a leaf emoji to mourn the fact that the very first time I wore the sweatshirt, I got a stain on it that won't come out, and it's a travesty. We need a moment of silence, so if you have nothing to say, please leave me a leaf emoji in solidarity with me and my sweatshirt. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you liked it. Bye.